What's up, everyone? Welcome to the best time of day with Norman D. Ortiz. Still a little bit of a new podcast, a little bit of a baby at this, but it's all right. We're making our way. I want to spend the next couple of minutes today talking to you about pivot. So much in life is based on the pivot. The dictionary says the central point, pin, or shaft on which a mechanism turns or oscillates. That's where you get the phrase pivotal point. But the pivot is the ability to be able to move to be a pivotal part of the mechanism where everything else around it turns, the gear shafts of a clock, things of that nature. And as we talk about this, I think sometimes it's so underrated because in life everyone talks about the grind and it's about the work and it's about the journey and it's about the obstacles, and all those things are completely true. But I think there's something that is definitely usually left out of the conversation, and it's the pivot. To me, it's the climax of difficulty. It's the climax of what happens right before success really hits hard, regardless of what sphere you're talking about in your life, whether it be relational, whether it be emotional, whether it be financial, whether it be for a career-driven area of life. But I want to talk to open up a little bit about kind of the things that are leading up to the pivot. And in life, things are always surrounded specifically by performance. And performance leads to the process or progress, and the progress is always going to be halted if there is not a pivot in place to allow things to continue. The pivot is such an integral part of everyday life, of the things that happen for us. If you want to think about sports, for instance, then you think about a basketball player who's pivoting his wrist to be able to release the ball the correct way. If you're thinking about football, you have a defender who is pivoting his hips and knees in a position to be able to play defense correctly, to move laterally, to move side to side, to be able to do what he has to do. If you're talking about golf, you're talking about pivotal part of the hips in which your swing is coming back and you're able to drive force into the ball. If you're talking about cricket, that pitcher his shoulder plays a pivotal part in being able to release the ball correctly to be able to get it to where it needs to go. If you're talking about business, you're talking about a pivotal part is to be able to make a pivotal part of a contract that allows you to get out of something, or to not allow someone to get out of something. Sometimes it's in the small fine print that it becomes a pivotal part of your business, a pivotal part of something that you own. And that's what I want to talk about. Is you have the performance, you have the process or the progress, and then you have the pivot. So many people start well. If you think about no matter what country you live in, how many people start grade school? When you're 5 years old, around that time, and you start kindergarten or whatever it is you call it in your country, and how many people start school? It's an insane number, unless you're from an impoverished country or a country in which you're held back because of gender or some type of issue. For the most part of the world, you're going to have an opportunity to be able to go to school. There's going to be a grade school component to everything that's happening, and everyone starts there. So when it comes to performance, everyone is usually involved in some kind of performance along the line. Throughout the process, throughout the progress of that performance, then you're getting about 18 years old and you're getting done with school. And when you're getting done with high school, now everyone has to make a decision on, do I go into further education? Do I go to college? Am I going to go to community college? Am I going to go to state school? Am I going Ivy League? Am I going overseas? Am I a good enough sports athlete to be able to play in the country where I want to play, whether it's soccer and you want to head to Europe or South America, or whether you're a basketball player and you're trying to stay in the United States where the league is more competitive. Irregardless, wherever you are, so many people perform, and then a fewer number of people progress or process. I want to throw it out there that an even greater number of people will be thinned out through the pivot or the lack thereof. That you're in business for 10 years, you are in church ministry for a decade and a half, 2 decades, and it comes time where something needs to change, something specifically needs to pivot. Something needs to oscillate around the things that you're going through. And few people, I believe, are equipped to be able to make the pivot in their life, the move from we're in small town USA to be able to move to a larger market for your business, to move to New York, to move to LA, to move to Chicago, to move to whatever it is the head part of your industry is. If it's country music with Nashville, if it's rap, what's going to be torn through a couple of cities, but predominantly for a lot of years is Atlanta. Or if it's for acting, which again is going to be torn in between whether you want to do Broadway, then it's in New York. If you want to do a lot of TV or movies, it's just the default. By default, it's going to be Hollywood. Are you willing to make the pivot? Are you willing to make the pivot? Are you willing to be that stay-at-home mom that is willing to make an investment in your life to be able to go back to school? Even if it's University of Phoenix, even if it's something that is measured at night school, or something that is measured that has some kind of metrics to it that is on your own pace, something that you can do from the confines of your own home because of the situations or the circumstances or the people that are dependent on you, that are around you. It's not just some people that aim to be successful, start a Fortune 500 company and are driven to do these different things. Sometimes it's the simplicity of trying to help your community, trying to better yourself, trying to put your family in a better situation. And all of these things are always going to be marked, yes, by performance, yes, by progress or process, but it's also going to be marked by the pivot. How good were you at the pivot, being able to make a monster change in your life that took an immense amount of belief in God, immense amount of belief in what God put inside of you and yourself to be able to make it, to be able to make a difference. One thing personal for me was in being in ministry for a lot of years. I was in a season where I was writing a lot, and for a couple of years I gave myself full over to that. And then the post-production side of all of that, of having to go through that, took another couple of years. And it took forever, but finally publishing the book, finally putting it in people's hands, finally people purchasing it and knowing that someone was validating years of my life's work. It didn't validate my soul or my heart or my value in life, but it validated the performance and it validated the process. The pivot validated the performance, which I started with, the process and progress that I continued with, but the pivot was the real value that I was willing to be vulnerable enough to put the work out there. What's your pivot? What situation or circumstance do you find yourself in that your performance started off red hot, you're red barring, and at what point did the RPMs begin to kind of slow down through the process and the progress, and you begin to pace yourself? And that's okay, that's healthy. But at what point has the pace deteriorated to a point where you're trying to get the RPMs to go back up, you're trying to get the business roaring again, you're trying to get these things off the ground, and nothing is moving for you? Perhaps it's not so much the performance, perhaps it's not so much the process or the progress, perhaps it's the pivot. Perhaps there's something in your mindset, in your psyche, in your emotions, in your relationships, in something in your life. Perhaps there's something that just needs to pivot, whether it's your relationship with God, whether it's your relationship with your spouse, whether it's your relationship with people in your life, whether it's the relationship with your coworkers and you're content with where you are career-wise, but you feel dissatisfied in your relationships. Perhaps there's just something that needs to pivot. So my hope for you, my belief for you, my prayer for you is that you would know what your performance is, that you would be appreciative and continue into your progress and process, but that you would be unafraid of the pivot. Thanks for listening to Best Time of Day, and I'll see you next time.